Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
11 and 12. I know you're going to get Mafia excited here. Hot and bothered.
You got to put Aaron Rodgers here and the Jets at 11. I would put him higher, but again, he barely played football last season. They've addressed their offensive line. It's not going to be great. The depth at wide receiver is a problem for me. Defense, perhaps the best in the National Football League. If Rodgers plays 14 games, they're probably going to win that division over the Bills.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Rory Mack, it's going to be remembered. It will be a lasting image from the 2024 United States Open, just like Bryson DeChambeau's 55-yard bunker shot.
We love big-time winners. Like, you win a championship, we want to hear from you. You get the stage. Sometimes it's emotional. It's a great watch. We know we also love the losers who said, you know what, I just can't believe I folded down the stretch. Let me face the music here. You sort of get a new light there.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome to hour number 3, live right here on this Wednesday on the Early Line on SportsGrid. And let's not bury the lead. It's draft day in the association in the NBA. Round number 1 in Brooklyn of the 2024 NBA draft, where a lot happened yesterday in Brooklyn, across the East River to Manhattan. So to start off hour 3, our coach James Young is live right here with us for the next half an hour to break down not only the NBA draft, but, of course, the blockbuster deal yesterday between the Nets and the Knicks that sends Mikal Bridges from Brooklyn to New York. JY, I can see the smile on your face, even on the monitor screen here in studio. We are glad to have you here on this Wednesday. Before we get to the trade and your reaction, thank you for being here.
It's great being here. I mean, this is like Christmas. All the gifts I want to try and give people. It's draft day, and then the Knicks give me the best gift of them all. Good morning, gentlemen. What a day! What a day!
What a gift it was for you. The reunion of Villanova. Mikal Bridges traded by Brooklyn to the New York Knicks. He will join up with his former teammates, Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart. All 4 of those guys victorious in a national championship back in 2016. In return, Brooklyn gets a haul. 4 unprotected first-round picks, a 5th first-rounder as well, and some more draft assets outside of that. Let's start with the New York Knicks. Was it worth it to trade all of that for Mikal Bridges?
I think they gave up a ton, but at some point, Ben, you got to put your chips to the center of the table if you want to make a move. And if you want to make a move for a guy across town, then you probably got to pay more than everybody else is willing to pay, because it has to make sense for Brooklyn. For the Knicks, it gives them something that will be sensational if they keep OG Anunoby. Those are 2 premier 3-and-D guys that you can line up mainly against Boston to try and guard Brown and Tatum. This is the Knicks looking at the best in the East and saying, what can we do to take that next step? Now, we'll have to see what happens with OG, and I think I still think they're going to try and re-sign him. But this is a team-friendly deal in regards to Bridges, 2 years left. there is something about this culture, and I want to know, after all the stuff that Josh Hart did on social media, how is he not being charged with tampering already this morning?
Hey, it's a great story to come up here, and we'll see in the NFL handing out those tampering charges here to the Atlanta Falcons. We'll see if that's the case. But if we are looking at that Knicks roster coming up and also how Bridges fits in, what do we see next year? Because Ben and I were talking earlier, like if you're a Tibbs guy, you get to play 40-plus minutes on a night-to-night basis. With Bridges coming over, does that change the rotation? And also, who's going to be the odd man out, Coach? And I don't mean leaving the team, but who gets hurt from Bridges coming over offensively, let's just say?
Well, I think if everyone stays, let's just go pie in the sky to keep Hartenstein, obviously to keep obviously OG. Then you're probably looking at Brunson, right? Exactly. So you're going with Brunson. Bridges is your 2, OG is your 3, Randall's your 4. I think Hartenstein replaces Mitchell Robinson in starting role 5. So who does it affect most? Probably Dante DiVincenzo, who was kind of pushed into the starting lineup once they traded quickly and Barrett for OG. I think Dante is comfortable coming off the bench. I think he's willing to accept that role. His minutes won't be affected. Now, it may affect other guys like Precious Achiuwa, maybe not coming back to New York at this point. And the thing about Mikal Bridges that's probably the most attractive guys is for a team that had a ton of injuries, the guy hasn't missed a game since high school. So he's going to be out there every game. The question you have for the Knicks, and I have for the Knicks, is this good enough shooting the ball? I know they're 3-and-D guys, but they don't have that sniper on that team. And obviously, Dante DiVincenzo, as great as he shot the second half of the year, he still showed some stretches during the postseason where he couldn't make threes. They still may not have enough shooting guys.
But it is not as easy to say pie in the sky to return all of the guys that we just listed on that graphic for the New York Knicks. OG Anunoby, Isaiah Hartenstein, both current free agents. Based on the reporting last night after the blockbuster deal to acquire Mikal Bridges, the Knicks still remain intentional in trying to sign OG Anunoby to bring him back. It might delve into the luxury tax. Probably not going to have the money to sign Isaiah Hartenstein to keep him in New York. And then, JY, the question becomes, what do they do with Julius Randle? When the start of the 2024-25 NBA season is here next October, of those 3 guys, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, Isaiah Hartenstein, how many play in New York?
1, and it's going to be OG. At some point, Randle's deal, Ben, you know this, is extremely attractive for teams if they want to shed salary. And to me, I could see the better lineup, and I'm not knocking Julius Randle, all right? 24, 9, and 5. And if you look at the splits, Ben, they all shot the ball better from 3 when he was on the floor. But you got to admit, defensively, going 3-4 with those 2 in regards to Bridges and Anunoby make more sense if you get a 2-guard. In regard to Hartenstein, I would look out for Mitchell Robinson. Do the Knicks try to move him to get some kind of relief so they can find a way to get Hartenstein back? They want him back. Mitch has already moved to Nashville. I think he thinks he's gone. It's going to be interesting. The roster isn't complete. Plus, they have picks 24 and 25, Ben. Could they attach that to someone's deal to shed salary, or did he do it to try and move up in the draft?
Yeah, they'll be tweaking that roster, no doubt about it. But if we do take a look at the conference championship for next year, the odds at the FanDuel Sportsbook, of course, it's going to be the Boston Celtics at a plus 125 price. But followed are the Bucks and the Knicks now tied at a 5-1 price to win the East. Then the Sixers, Heat, and the Cavaliers. Looking at the New York Knicks now, are they a legitimate contender now in the Eastern Conference?
Yes, they're a legitimate contender. But there's still a pretty big gap between Boston and everyone else. Simply put, Donnie, like I said before, this trade was eyed at Boston. If you bring OG back, you have 2, I would say, the top 5 3-and-D defenders in the NBA that can go guard Tatum and Brown. That's what this is about. This is about New York looking around and looking at Boston and saying, okay, if we're healthy, what can we do to get ourselves over the hump? That's the move. When you look at everyone else, as constructed, if OG comes back and Randall's still there because they haven't traded him, and it's either Hartenstein or Robinson. I firmly believe that the Knicks right now are the second best team in the East. I got to see what Milwaukee does because Doc Rivers has talked about he wants to surround better players with Giannis and Dame. Well, I want to know where they're getting these guys from and what are their attractive deals or first-round picks that they can attach to go get someone. Philadelphia is intriguing because I think they're going to go get Paul George, and that's a third scorer. But their roster is really complete. So right now, the Knicks are the second best team. But a lot can change, guys, over the next couple of weeks.
And as of this moment, the New York Knicks are tied with Milwaukee for that second best price at 5-1. But still, everybody about $4 behind Boston Celtics, who opened following championship number 18 last week as not only a short favorite to win the Eastern Conference crown once again, but the NBA championship once again as well. But after the acquisition in the trade last night, the Knicks have seen their price shorten, not only to win the East, plus $750, down by $2.50 to 5-1, but 16-1 to win next year's Larry O'Brien Trophy, now a 10-1 number. And JY, second best might not sound great, but I think everybody is playing for second in the Eastern Conference. There's a long summer and offseason ahead in the association, but Boston is pegged in its own tier. You're trying to be the team that could rival the Celtics if you're able to reach the Eastern Conference Finals. Draft day on the early line. Up next. Technically, despite having the most wins in both the AL and all of Major League Baseball, 52 of them for New York, no longer the best winning percentage.
You expect your front offices to hit that gas pedal when it comes time to get a better team on the field post All-Star break, because the one thing that you know from the Yankees and the Orioles is what, Ben? You're going to fight with each other throughout the stretch here, and you want home field advantage.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
You know, this guy is the mad scientist. I mean, he's all about green density. So in my mind, I feel like he's going to have the green speeds dialed in, and the angles he needs to land them and all that sort of stuff. I feel like he's going to be a good spot and playing the course well. And he's going to be hitting less club into a lot of these par threes too. So I just, we're talking about using a live guy. I love Bryson this week. I'm riding with Bryson.
Only on SportsGrid.
This new sports integrity partnership, Genius Sports, is involved in this. More protection.
They said that's going to allow them to beef up their protection and add more integrity monitoring tools to essentially catch bad behavior before it happens. This comes, obviously, after a just ton of scandals we've had across sports betting lately, whether it's the MLB umpire, Pat Hoberg.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Despite me being a Yankee fan, I think Joe would deserve the label as Aaron Judge's biggest fan, not through any bias, but just through the amount of money that he's made anybody who's been betting on him.
I just had him for that home run, and I'm going to go back to it today. That home run coming in at plus 230. Max Fried here, while he has been strong, this is Aaron Judge.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
It is draft day in the NBA, live right here on this Wednesday on the early line, round number 1, tonight in Brooklyn. James Young is here once again, our coach. He will be here later on throughout the SportsGrid network as well, especially our 8 p.m. Eastern time start of our 2024 NBA Draft Special. Myself, JY, and Kevin Walsh live in studio for the entirety of round number 1 tonight. JY, it's been a pretty good Wednesday for you, carrying over from Tuesday night in the blockbuster deal. It should be a very fun NBA Draft Special as well.
It should be, and I think Ben. Obviously, it's been a lot of prep that you, myself, and K-Dub have put in, but it's so unpredictable this year because of what could be trades, who could go where, what guys go undervalued, overvalued. It's going to be a great night. Make sure everybody tune in tonight.
And JY, there is that conversation, of course, about this NBA draft, this draft class in 2024 not being as prestigious or as illustrious as years past. And yes, by comparison, that is the case. But in context, this year is still going to be impactful for the association in the future for the 30 clubs around the NBA. So let's set the stage and make sure people are up to speed before the first round of the NBA draft tonight. Here is the first round order. Picks 1 through 30. And of course, for the first time ever, the NBA draft is now a 2-night event since it became a 2-round draft in 1989. JY, as you look at the top 5, top 10, the lottery, who are some teams that you are paying the most attention to ahead of tonight?
Well, obviously, you got to start at the top of the draft with Atlanta because, they're going to probably take Ricochet, but does someone come and get him? Do they make a trade? What are they going to do? Because they have so many questions just beyond, Ben, the drafting. Number one is, what do they do with DeJounte versus Trey? Jalen Johnson versus Hunter? Okongwu versus Capella? There's so many compelling arguments with Atlanta. Next, you got to start looking at teams that have multiple picks. You got to look at San Antonio at 4 and 8. Are they looking somewhere? Do they try and rebuild that backcourt, right? Maybe move Devin Vassell to a small forward and 3-guard lineup and address the backcourt. There's been talk over the last 48 hours. Do they go get Donovan Clingan at 4 and pair him with Wemby to make it an elite 4-5 combination? I think they're intriguing. The Lakers are going to be intriguing, obviously, because of the Bronny sweepstakes. And then there's Portland. Portland is so intriguing right now with 7-14, Ben, because simply put, I am starting to feel really strongly that they are so in on Zach Edey. Unless Donovan Clingan drops to 7. So if Clingan goes before 7, does Zach Edey now become someone that you want to look at as being a top 10 pick in the NBA draft? He's already down to plus 250. Last night, Ben, he was 3-1. So there is this movement now of Zach Edey moving up, and I think he's squarely he's riding on the coattails of Donovan Clingan.
Coach, we've been watching for the past couple weeks. These odds are moving left and right for the number 1 overall pick, and that's going to continue today and also has happened multiple times. Opening up the show at a minus 390 price was Zachary Ricochet. He went up to a 550 over the break. Now's back down to a minus 480 price to be the number 1 overall pick. What are we going to see today? And also, is this going to be one of those where you see bounces back and forth, or we just see a decided momentum where Ricochet goes from now minus 480 to 550 to 7-1 and higher at that point?
Honestly, it depends on if Shams or Woj start dropping bombs and moving markets. This reminds me of, I think it was 2 years ago when I was on with Ben, and it was the whole thing with Ben Carroll. It was all over the place, and it was moving by the minute. So to me, I still think it's Ricochet. Ben and I have tickets on Ricochet, so we damn well want it to be Ricochet. But you never know. To me, I don't believe the Alex Sarr conversation. I think that's a smokescreen by Atlanta to try and get Washington to trade up to get to the number 1 pick because they know that's where Sarr wants to go. So I think they're calling their bluff. At the end of the day, I do think it's Ricochet. Clingan is a consideration, but like I said, there still could be a trade that could change everything about the draft.
We see it annually in the NFL draft. Odds can shift as close to about 30 minutes before we get underway and team selecting number 1 is on the clock. We have seen it the past 2 years in the NBA draft. In 2022, it was ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski that came out and said Paolo Banchero's going first overall when everybody had slotted in Jabari Smith to be that first overall pick. Then that kind of got rebuked, only to be Paolo right before the draft closes around a minus 2,000 favorite. Last year, it was the Shams Charania tweet about Scoot Henderson being in strong consideration to go second overall to Charlotte. It ended up being Brandon Miller. It moves these markets because draft positions are based on speculation and report. It is not quantifiable. It makes it volatile. but oh so much fun to bet. Outside of number 1, JY, as you look at the favored player to go either 1 through 10, what is your other best bet in the top 10 of the 2024 NBA draft?
I like Castle at 4 going to San Antonio. I think you look at that roster and you look at the fact of Trey Jones, and they need a point guard. They need a defender, a guy that can push the pace and be young and develop with that core, obviously led by Victor Wembanyama. So out of all of them, it's Castle, who has now moved to a minus money favorite. He was plus money yesterday. So I think Castle is the one I'm most comfortable with in that slot. But like I said, a lot of things can happen in the next 10 hours.
A lot to talk about here in our next segment together with JY as well. The prospect of Zach Edey, the prospect of Bronny James. When will both of those players that garner attention hear their names called? Could Edey be a lottery pick? JY thinks so, or at least I believe he is starting to think so. I believe so as well. And when will Bronny James go? More than likely, not tonight during round number 1, but in round number 2 and where? Some more draft insights from our coach, James Young, on the other side of the break here on draft day in the association. We'll hear about Zach Edey and Bronny James and some other names to know, like Tijan Sajan, Salon, some names to know that we will all figure out up next on the early line.
Making it up as we go.
Technically, despite having the most wins in both the AL and all of Major League Baseball, 52 of them for New York, no longer the best winning percentage.
You expect your front offices to hit that gas pedal when it comes time to get a better team on the field post All-Star break, because the one thing that you know from the Yankees and the Orioles is what, Ben? You're going to fight with each other throughout the stretch here, and you want home field advantage.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You know, this guy is the mad scientist. I mean, he's all about green density. So in my mind, I feel like he's going to have the green speeds dialed in, and Bengals needs to land them and all that sort of stuff. I feel like he's going to be a good spot and playing the course well. And he's going to be hitting less club into a lot of these par threes too. So I just, we're talking about using a live guy. I love Bryson this week. I'm riding with Bryson.
Only on SportsGrid.
This new sports integrity partnership, Genius Sports, is involved in this. More protection.
They said that's going to allow them to beef up their protection and add more integrity monitoring tools to essentially catch bad behavior before it happens. This comes, obviously, after a just ton of scandals we've had across sports betting lately, whether it's the MLB umpire, Pat Hoberg.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Despite me being a Yankee fan, I think Joe would deserve the label as Aaron Judge's biggest fan, not through any bias, but just through the amount of money that he's made anybody who's been betting on him.
I just had him for that home run, and I'm going to go back to it today. That home run coming in at plus 230. Max Fried here, while he has been strong, this is Aaron Judge.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
JY, there's always a lot of conversation about the best college superstars that we know in college hoops and how they will transition to the NBA. College basketball and the NBA, very different games despite both being played on the hardwood. So when it comes to the 7'4" big man out of Purdue, Zach Edey, the two-time reigning National Player of the Year, his pro prospects have often been debated. When will Zach Edey hear his name called in the 2024 NBA draft?
I don't think he goes past Portland at 14. And I think there is a chance, based on what happens with Donovan Clingan, that he could go top 10. And I think it's really amazing to look at the transformation of a guy that people didn't think could play in the NBA a year ago. He's shown his lateral quickness to me. He's played pick and roll coverages better than what people thought. Let's be honest. If Jonas Valanciunas and Rudy Gobert can play drop coverage, why can't Zach Edey? I think people have kind of come on to that. He can play in the NBA, and he's a dominating force inside. I think he goes inside of 15, so I would take the under 14.5 with Zach Edey, and I could sprinkle that he's a top 10 pick. Now, if you're able to get it live during the draft after Clingan goes at 3, you better jump right away, because that market's going to run away from him right away, because I think he can go 7 that first time with Portland.
Coach, let's take a look at Bronny James. Over the past week, we do have market movement here at the FanDuel Sportsbook for him as well. A 40.5 pricing on his draft position has now skyrocketed this morning to 54.5. But the issue with Bing, if we take a look at that Bronny James tab at the FanDuel Sportsbook, is he's still staying at a 5-1 price to be a first-round draft pick. We haven't had all that much movement on him to be a Laker, which is now only listed at minus 145. Bronny James, does he go tonight in round number 1? Does he go in round number 2? Does he go undrafted? What are some thoughts here on Bronny?
Well, it's interesting. On my last big board, Bronny James is exactly 60th on my draft board. But he's going to be the guy that's going to go way higher than he's supposed to. I think he goes to top of round 2. Watch for early on. If you see the Lakers trade back, that could be the thing. So I think Bronny goes way too high, probably because I think LA may get nervous. I may have to go up and get him and not wait for pick 55.
Both the Suns and the Sixers have forfeited a pick in this draft, so only 58 in total, and that draft position prop for Bronny James has been on a drastic slide. 54.5, the updated number. The over has the juice at minus 158. Who selects 55th overall as of this moment tomorrow night? That's the LA Lakers. So, JY, as we look at your scouting report for the 2024 NBA draft class, who do you think, out of all the prospects in this class, when all is said and done, will have the best NBA career?
I'm so intrigued by Castle. I think his ability at 6'6", with his 6'9" wingspan, the ability to play defense, be a combo guard. If he gets the jump shot fixed, he's going to be an absolute star. And if you look at it, he hadn't had to do a bulk of the offensive load at UConn, playing with Clingan, playing with, obviously Tristan Newton, playing with Caravan, playing with Spencer. But we saw spots where this guy absolutely took over games. I think this guy will end up being the best out of all these guys in the NBA. That's not saying he's to be a generational talent, but I think there are all-star games in the future for Castle.
Coach, give us a player that you think is going to go too low in this draft here tonight.
Oh, Tijan Salam. I hope I said it right, man. But I'll practice the rest of the day. But I'm a big fan of his because of his length, his athleticism. Maybe some people kind of seen him, call him like a baby Giannis because of his length and his ability to play defense and run the break. If he gets a jump shot, I think this is a guy that people aren't sure about. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. I think he goes too low. And also, maybe Tristan da Silva. I think this guy's a bucket getter. He's going to be really good in the NBA. I think he may slide, and that could be a mistake.
A couple of draft spots that you can bet on both Tijan Salam and Tristan da Silva, including a match bet for da Silva against another sharpshooter out of college hoops. That's Jared McCain after his freshman year at Duke. Minus 148 now for McCain to go in front to be selected before Tristan da Silva. JY, rest up. We've got a long night ahead. 8 p.m. Eastern Time, SportsGrid's 2024 NBA Draft Special begins. The Coach JY, myself, and old K-Dubs, Kevin Walsh. Donnie said make sure to tune in and that he would be watching JY, but we know he's going to be fast asleep. Hit the fadeaway to the break. We'll see you tonight. MLB Breakdowns next. technically, despite having the most wins in both the AL and all of Major League Baseball, 52 of them for New York, no longer the best winning percentage.
You expect your front offices to hit that gas pedal when it comes time to get a better team on the field post All-Star break, because the one thing that you know from the Yankees and the Orioles is what, Ben? You're going to fight with each other throughout the stretch here, and you want home field advantage.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You know, this guy is the mad scientist. I mean, he's all about green density. So in my mind, I feel like he's going to have the green speeds dialed in, and the angles he needs to land them and all that sort of stuff. I feel like he's going to be a good spot and playing the course well. And he's going to be hitting less club into a lot of these par threes too. So I just, we're talking about using a live guy. I love Bryson this week. I'm riding with Bryson.
Only on SportsGrid.
This new sports integrity partnership, Genius Sports, is involved in this. More protection.
They said that's going to allow them to beef up their protection and add more integrity monitoring tools to essentially catch bad behavior before it happens. This comes, obviously, after a just ton of scandals we've had across sports betting lately, whether it's the MLB umpire, Pat Hoberg.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Despite me being a Yankee fan, I think Joe would deserve the label as Aaron Judge's biggest fan, not through any bias, but just through the amount of money that he's made anybody who's been betting on him.
I just had him for that home run, and I'm going to go back to it today. That home run coming in at plus 230. Max Fried here, while he has been strong, this is Aaron Judge.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The Diamond Dash, a ton of MLB breakdowns coming your way on this Wednesday on the Early Line. Not only the 2024 NBA Draft, but a full baseball card with an additional game in St. Louis between the Braves and the Cardinals because of a weather postponement yesterday. A doubleheader in St. Louis. 16 games in total on this MLB card on a Wednesday. 9 of them in the afternoon hours around this country. We start in Baltimore. The Guardians, the hottest active team in Major League Baseball, 7 consecutive wins. The best record now in all of MLB, the best record in the American League as well. The Orioles on the other end of that spectrum, DRS, they've dropped 5 consecutive games. What happens here? Does Baltimore avoid the sweep, or could Cleveland make it 8 in a row?
The one thing it looks like to me is, yes, 2 quality ball clubs, and we're looking to change the narrative here, specifically here on the Baltimore Orioles. But I got to tell you, we're going to have 87-degree temperatures here around 6:35 at that start. Some rain in the forecast, which means thunderstorms. That's normal for this time of the year, but also 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out. If we take a look, and before we actually go over the pitchers themselves, let's look at these batting arrangements today. Let's just take a look at the Guardians that have been red hot at the plate. Grayson Rodriguez is on the mound. We'll get to him in a second, but he's a right-handed pitcher. Against right-handed pitching over the past 30 days, you take a look at Andres Jimenez, batting number 2. Low ISO, low weighted on base percentage. The final guy in that order we expect tonight will be Bo Naylor, the catcher, a left-handed batter, low weighted on base percentage. Everybody else has elevated numbers. That's a great sign for this game tonight. If we flip it over to the other side, the Baltimore Orioles, who I told you yesterday, going up against a pitcher, let's just say a left-handed pitcher, don't match up all that well or haven't been hitting that well over the past 30 days. Carrasco's a right-handed pitcher on the mound today. You take a look at this lineup. Outside of Cedric Mullins, 292 weighted on base percentage, 8 batters that we anticipate to be in the lineup, all above average here. So runs should happen, but that's also why you're seeing that total of a 9.5. Now, if we take a look at Carlos Carrasco on the season, a weighted on base percentage here of 355, an ISO of 206 combined between lefty and righty batters. You take a look at the past 30 days for Rodriguez, 128 batters he's faced, a 164 ISO, which is right around average, and a weighted on base percentage, which is right around average, but he does tend to give it up to right-handed batters here. These batters are too good on both sides. You saw runs yesterday. I think we get runs again today. Double-digit runs, that's a better look for me than picking the side in this one.
We saw 18 runs yesterday.
Yeah.
Cleveland won the first game 3-2. The Guardians looking for this series sweep against the O's. Baltimore swept over the weekend by the Houston Astros as well, trying to avoid that for a second consecutive set. Might we see a series sweep in the Subway Series tonight in Queens? Only a 2-game set between the New York Yankees and the New York Mets. The Mets winning the opener, getting to Garrett Cole early and often yesterday at Citi Field, 9-7 the victory. Yesterday, an underdog at home. Today, an underdog at home. Sean Manaea gets the start for the Amazons. On the other side for the Pinstripes, it's Luis Gil, who pitched against the Baltimore Orioles last week in his most recent outing DRS. An inning and a third, 7 earned runs allowed. Is Luis Gil better on the hill today?
We expect him to be better, but again, there's no long track record on Luis Gil for 10 years going, hey, man, he's got great bounce-back numbers here. We'll see if that factors in. And also, the red-hot grimace Mets, you take a look at them over the past 30 days against right-handed pitching. They have been filleting, Ben, those pitchers here. The only 2 guys that are struggling, Jeff McNeil and Tyrone Taylor. Everybody else, very, very good numbers. Now, also keep in mind tonight, we are playing in similar conditions that we saw yesterday. Low 80s at the start, 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out the dead center field, but some thunderstorms that are in the forecast. But if we are looking at that Yankees lineup going up against a lefty, they've done particularly well, including those first 4 batters. Volpe, Soto, Judge, and Torres do have some really nice numbers against lefties, but that lineup gets a little shaky after that. Verdugo, Davis, LeMahieu, Trevino certainly haven't had all that many at-bats and haven't had any quality at-bats against left-handed pitcher. If we're just looking at, if we take out that last start, right, like, oh my God, it's going to be the Yankees by a mile. Like, Gil's been tremendous, and Manaea is a guy that we can't trust. That's not necessarily the case, but I will trust in this. I don't think what we saw to Luis Gil for his first starts, as opposed to his last starts, was really a mirage. Like, eventually they're going to catch him. His analytical numbers and also his regular numbers, ERA-wise, were fantastic. Manaea, last 30 days, a 205 ISO and a 335 weighted on base percentage through 86 at-bats combining between lefty and righties here. That could be an issue. I do expect a bounce-back performance tonight for the New York Yankees against the Mets in the Subway Series.
Gil won all 6 of his starts in May. He won 2 of his first 3 starts in June. Entered last week's outing in Baltimore, or against Baltimore, it was inside Yankee Stadium, with a 9-1 record and a 2.03 ERA. I think he will be just fine. Luis, don't call him Lucas. Gil. Now we go to Boston for the rubber match of a series between 2 divisional foes in the AL East. The Red Sox have still won 8 of their last 10 games, despite losing yesterday to Toronto inside Fenway. The Jays snapping a 7-game losing skid with the victory 9-4 yesterday in Beantown. Boston a hefty favorite with Cutter Crawford on the bump today. You heard what Mark Zinno had to say, and he's not incorrect, that Cutter Crawford has been decent throughout the entirety of this year, but struggling as of late. And the Sox have been struggling with Crawford on the bump. They've lost 8 of the last 9 starts that Crawford has made.
Yeah, and by the way, you're taking a look at some of Crawford's numbers right now. Last 30 days, 274 ISO power number through 124 batters faced at 327 weighted on base percentage. Crawford is a right-handed pitcher, but take a look at what he's done against lefties. That gets elevated on those numbers I just talked about. 64 lefties he's faced over the past month, 350 ISO, 356 weighted on base percentage. So the issue is here, what type of lefties are we going to get and be able to trust in that lineup today for the Blue Jays? Spencer Horwitz does have very good numbers to his last 50 at-bats against right-handed pitching. He might be able to be in your lineup, but it looks like Barger there and Kiermaier, not great numbers all throughout. Now, we are looking at some weather conditions, which once again are going to include thunderstorms, but 80-degree temperatures and a wind blowing out to dead center field at Fenway usually poses some dangers there to pitchers. Now, if you look at that other side for Toronto, we might be getting a bullpen game and or an opener here with Rodriguez. Right. Not a lot of statistics to lean on, so you're just trying to take a look at how much you actually like that Boston lineup, and I do like it quite a bit. However, it's hard to handicap a game full game and say, well, I like Toronto, even though I don't really know how long those pitchers are going to go. So if I'm just using this, probably an over here. I'll go in Fenway and say both of these lineups can stack up some runs here and they'll get after it.
Yeah. 9.5 the total tonight inside Fenway. The over has the juice. We have seen 13 runs scored in each of the first 2 games of this series. Tonight inside Fenway Park is the rubber match. The Rays looking for a series sweep over the Mariners. The M's not playing great baseball as of right now. They've lost 6 of their last 7. And because Houston has won 6 in a row, only a 4.5-game lead now for Seattle over the Stros. And as has been the case this week, the Mariners are a road favorite in the Trop. The Rays now back to 500 for the first time since early June. It's the first game of the day, 12:11 p.m. Eastern time, the scheduled first pitch. Total is 7. What do you like?
Yeah, you take a look at that 7.5 number, probably leaning towards an under, even though yesterday you did have an over. Early game start, and as Ben pointed out, a noon, 12:10 start here, so coming up in just a few hours. Kirby has very, very good statistics over the past 30 days. 120 batters he's faced, a 103 ISO power number, which is fantastic, a 242 weighted on base percentage, and also he's been dominant between lefties and righties, being that Kirby is a right-handed pitcher. Walk rate for him, 2.5% over the last month. Strikeout rate, Ben, 27%. He should be able to do enough to put Seattle in. But the question is going to be, what offense are we getting here out of the Seattle Mariners? And they are tumbling as of late. The one thing you can look forward to is Pepio's on the mound. He does have elevated numbers, a 248 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 362. Even though that lineup doesn't present well right now on a day-to-day basis for the Mariners, I do think you have the better pitcher on the mound, and you are in dire straits to pick up a victory. And I think the better pitcher should be able to carry the day. The Mariners should be able to get off the carpet today and get a W, Ben.
They are a slight favorite in Tampa, -116, that current money line number. The Rays winning yesterday. The Rays playing better baseball. The Rays back to 500 for the first time since early June. If the Astros win their 7th straight game today, Houston will also be 40-40 at an even 500 for the first time this season. Will that happen today in H-Town? We break it down next. Technically, despite having the most wins in both the AL and all of Major League Baseball, 52 of them for New York, no longer the best winning percentage.
You expect your front offices to hit that gas pedal when it comes time to get a better team on the field post All-Star break, because the one thing that you know from the Yankees and the Orioles is what, Ben? You're going to fight with each other throughout the stretch here, and you want home field advantage.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You know, this guy is the mad scientist. I mean, he's all about green density. So in my mind, I feel like he's going to have the green speeds dialed in, and the angles he needs to land them and all that sort of stuff. I feel like he's going to be a good spot and playing the course well. And he's going to be hitting less club into a lot of these par threes too. So I just, we're talking about using a live guy. I love Bryson this week. I'm riding with Bryson.
Only on SportsGrid.
This new sports integrity partnership, Genius Sports, is involved in this. More protection.
They said that's going to allow them to beef up their protection and add more integrity monitoring tools to essentially catch bad behavior before it happens. This comes, obviously, after a just ton of scandals we've had across sports betting lately, whether it's the MLB umpire, Pat Hoberg.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Despite me being a Yankee fan, I think Joe would deserve the label as Aaron Judge's biggest fan, not through any bias, but just through the amount of money that he's made anybody who's been betting on him.
I just had him for that home run, and I'm going to go back to it today. That home run coming in at plus 230. Max Fried here, while he has been strong. This is Aaron Judge.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Don't look now, but the fork is firmly in the silverware drawer. The Houston Astros have won 8 of their last 10 games, including 6 victories in a row. If the Houston Astros, as they are favored to do at a pretty hefty price, beat the Colorado Rockies, one of the worst teams in MLB, at home today, the Astros DRS will be an even 500, 40-40 for the very first time this year. The odds say it will happen. What does Donnie say?
It probably is going to happen. You take a look at Feltner on the mound here. Over the past 30 days, 117 batters he's faced, 241 ISO, weighted on base percentage, 388, which means as a right-handed pitcher, he's really struggling with left-handed batters. Now, good for him. Not a lot of left-handed batters will be in the lineup. Alvarez and also Loperfido. So only two guys we're anticipating here. But that should not stop that offensive surge we anticipate for the Houston Astros. And yesterday, 5 runs in the first. You might have thought that game was going way over the total, Ben, but certainly not. Only 2 runs late tacked on by the Rockies to have that game at 7. I believe we closed around 8 to 8.5 in that one. That's a tough pill to swallow. I do think you get runs today because Arrighetti has pitched better as opposed to early in the season. But even though, looking at his last 30 days, you remove the analytics, weighted on base percentage, 372, ISO power number 205. The only issue is what do you get out of the Colorado Rockies when they're on the road as opposed to being home? So you see that heavy favorite. It's there for a reason. Is the price a little bit too high to pay on a money line? Probably so. But if I'm just saying to myself, let me go here and see if I can make some money on some RBI props, you look in the middle of that lineup. You're probably going to be more one focused on left-handed batters. So Alvarez seems to always pop into my mind. Why? Because he's an awesome hitter with 2 great batters in front of him here. He's got a 354 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 473 over his last 70 at-bats against right-handed pitching. He should eat today. So instead of me saying, let me lay the minus 199 or 202-1 favorite here on the Astros, just give me Alvarez today to get an RBI. Guys should be on base, and he should be knocking them in today.
The Rocks, 27-52 this year. That's the worst record in all of the National League. The worst record in all of the major leagues. That's the Chicago White Sox, 21-60, in danger of being swept by the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers, a road favorite today, as you would expect, minus 184. It was close yesterday. LA started the game with a leadoff home run from Shohei Ohtani, 24 this year, most in the NL. But the White Sox responded with 3 runs in the first, and then all the scoring once again stopped for Chicago. Freddie Freeman had a couple of RBIs. Shohei Ohtani, game-winning RBI as well. Later in that ball game, the Dodgers victorious 4-3. Will they make it 3 in a row on the South Side today?
They probably will, but also take a look at that game yesterday. It was Dinger Tuesday here at the FanDuel Sportsbook, and I said to myself, look, Shohei Ohtani's probably going to go yard, but I don't know if I want to pay an under 2-1 price like outside of Colorado. So what does Shohei Ohtani do? First at bat of the game, bing, rockets that ball out to right field for a home run, but it did take my best bet of the day for Ohtani to get 2 RBI, and he got that later in the game. So it was a nice day all the way around for Major League Baseball. But if we are looking for runs today, I probably expect more of what we saw yesterday, a lower scoring game. Gavin Stone will be on the mound. He has some really good numbers, Ben, over the past month here. 120 batters he's faced. Take a look at this, an 0.72 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 249. That's really good, and that's not a great lineup today, which is on a day-to-day basis. We talk about it here for the Chicago White Sox. Take a look at only 2 batters in that lineup, DeYoung and also Robert, as guys with both ISO power number and weighted on base percentages over the past month over that threshold of 160 and 325. So I don't think a lot of runs are coming from a Chicago perspective. Having said that, on the Dodgers side, a lot of good batters in that lineup, but one of those guys, like we talk about sometimes Ronaldo Lopez, right? When he came from the White Sox, just a terrible pitcher, gives up home runs. He's now really good. Eric Fetty was a really bad pitcher for a long time for the Nationals, but look at these numbers. 389 batters he's faced this year, Ben, a 136 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 288. That's a pretty good sample size. Give me the under in this game in the Windy City today.
8.5 that total in Chicago. Now we go from Chicago to Detroit. Rubber match today in this midweek set between the Phillies and the Tigers. Tarek Skubal, sensational yesterday to even this series at 1 game apiece for Detroit. Bryce Harper did hit his 5th home run in the last 6 games, and the Phils a road favorite today. Spencer Turnbull makes his return to Detroit, where he spent the entirety of his MLB career before joining the Phils this year in 2024. Who wins the rubber match, Philadelphia or Detroit?
Afternoon action, about 80 degrees at first pitch, wind blowing out to left field at 7 miles an hour, so some decent hitting conditions today. Here's the issue. Spencer Turnbull's going back into that starting lineup. He was nothing short of sensational when he was there through the first part of the season before giving way to Taijuan Walker. But if we are looking at his numbers, 212 batters on the season, very good ISO, very good weighted on base percentage. If we only take a look at the 22 left-handed batters that he's faced in the last month, he's had an issue with those. But that's not a great sample size here. And certainly the one thing we know, that's not a great roster for the Detroit Tigers. So if you are saying Spencer Turnbull has a chance to maybe give it up a little bit against left-handed batters, there's not great batters there. Riley Green probably should be in your forecast. Baду maybe, but outside of that, it's not a great lineup. So if I'm just going to lean on the Phillies have a better 1 through 9 and possibly the better pitcher on the mound today, they should be able to bounce back in their performance. But also, I'm not going anywhere and saying to myself, well, I think the Phillies will bounce back with a ton of runs. There's another lefty on the mound today that does have some decent statistics that they haven't seen this pitcher before. So probably an under in the forecast, but a Phillies victory, much like I thought yesterday, which ended with an under, but a Phillies loss.
The Texas Rangers trying to avoid a sweep today at the hands of the Milwaukee Brewers in Wisconsin. Texas entered this midweek set winners of 4 in a row, starting to find that World Series form. Not the case this week against the Brew Crew. The Brewers, though, a home underdog against Nathan Eovaldi and Texas. Milwaukee looking for the sweep, but an underdog. What do you like today between the Brew Crew and the Rangers?
I got to do some work on this one because, again, just seeing some of the pitchers that pop up without any statistics, like Dallas Keuchel, I believe, is supposed to be the scheduled starter here for the Milwaukee Brewers. I mean, for years, while he was, first of all, for years, he was a great pitcher in Major League Baseball, but then sort of when I throw a fastball like 83 miles an hour and everybody is tanking me, this is an interesting starting spot for the Brewers. So it's actually hard to gauge what I think I'm going to get out of the Texas Rangers bats. But if you're just going with the law of averages, I know you might be getting a bad pitching performance, but the Texas Rangers really haven't rose up at the plate here for us. So I'm just going to look at the better pitcher on the mound today, who I think is the Rangers' Nathan Eovaldi, and I'll go with the Rangers at this point. But I got to do some digging on Keuchel. I'm going to have some opportunities here to get some RBI on the opposite side.
The Rangers still 5 games below 500, with the Mariners coming back down to earth in the American League West. Can they get hot at the right time? We shall see. More daily MLB plays and a best bet up next. Technically, despite having the most wins in both the AL and all of Major League Baseball, 52 of them for New York, no longer the best winning percentage.
You expect your front offices to hit that gas pedal when it comes time to get a better team on the field post All-Star break, because the one thing that you know from the Yankees and the Orioles is what, Ben? You're going to fight with each other throughout the stretch here, and you want home field advantage.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You know, this guy is the mad scientist. I mean, he's all about green density. So in my mind, I feel like he's going to have the green speeds dialed in, and the angles he needs to land them and all that sort of stuff. I feel like he's going to be a good spot and playing the course well. And he's going to be hitting less club into a lot of these par threes too. So I just, we're talking about using a live guy. I love Bryson this week. I'm riding with Bryson.
Only on SportsGrid.
This new sports integrity partnership, Genius Sports, is involved in this. More protection.
They said that's going to allow them to beef up their protection and add more integrity monitoring tools to essentially catch bad behavior before it happens. This comes, obviously, after a just ton of scandals we've had across sports betting lately, whether it's the MLB umpire, Pat Hoberg.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Despite me being a Yankee fan, I think Joe would deserve the label as Aaron Judge's biggest fan, not through any bias, but just through the amount of money that he's made anybody who's been betting on him.
I just had him for that home run, and I'm going to go back to it today. That home run coming in at plus 230. Max Fried here, while he has been strong, this is Aaron Judge.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
We continue our Major League Baseball breakdowns on this Wednesday. 16 games on the card because we will play 2 in St. Louis between the Cardinals and the Atlanta Braves after a rain out and weather postponement yesterday. and 9 of those games in the afternoon hours. That includes out in Southern California, 4 p.m. Eastern time here. That's 1 p.m. Pacific. Dylan Cease on the bump for the Padres. They're a minus 190 favorite at home against the Washington Nationals. DRS, what's the play in San Diego?
By the way, we had some fireworks yesterday in this game at the plate, and also, once again, at the plate with batters not having a good time with catchers, and catchers fighting with players, and players getting hit by baseballs. Jurickson Profar might have a little bit of problems today in his first at-bat. But if we get ahead of that, you know what we like on the West Coast? Day games compared to night games. The reason why I like day games out there, the ball tends to travel more. That marine layer on the West Coast doesn't appear during the day. And today in San Diego, 76 degrees with the wind blowing out the right field at 9 miles an hour. If we remove all of the analytical analysis on these pitchers and take a look at what has happened to them, Dylan Cease over his last 115 at-bats as a pitcher, 212 ISO, 365 weighted on base percentage. Lefty and righty batters having a lot of success. If we flip it over to the other side here with San Diego, left-handed pitcher DJ Hers, look at this, 80 at-bats that he's faced over the past 30 days, a 189 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 334. And one of those anomalies that we look at as a left-handed pitcher, he's actually worse against left-handed batters than he is against right-handed batters. You're going to get a lot of switch hitters in the lineup today for the San Diego Padres, which is atypical for me to say, you know what, I like overs out in San Diego, but I think that's the right call today. Both of these pitchers susceptible, nice weather in San Diego, a day game where the ball will travel farther. We'll go with the over in this game.
Both of the games that we have seen so far in this series have featured double-digit runs. San Diego has won each of the first 2, looking for the sweep against Washington. The Padres have won 6 of their last 7, almost had a 4-game weekend set sweep over Milwaukee, but the Brew Crew won the finale. Robert Suarez, the closer for San Diego, 20 saves this year, his 20th coming yesterday in the closeout victory over the Nats. And if I may, Adam Azura got the start and his first win of the season yesterday for San Diego, Iowa Hawkeye. The day before, Matt Waldron, a Nebraska Cornhusker, Big Ten baseball down there in San Diego. So, DRS, as we spin it around here on this Wednesday, it is time now to give our best of all the bets, whether it's the NBA draft or a full Wednesday card around MLB. Before we say farewell and before we say goodbye, it is time for bye-bye-bye. 16 games, technically, to choose from with a doubleheader today in St. Louis between the Braves and the Cardinals. I've got a feeling, unless you surprise me in a large way with an NBA draft best bet, you're looking at the baseball diamond.
Yeah, a little bit like best bets. We like to have a little bit of added intrigue. The Bronny James already took him here. You know he's going to go to the Lakers. Sign that up at the FanDuel Sportsbook. We're already in there. That's just bonus coverage right now. Let's take a look at Major League Baseball. We already talked about this game. It's Cleveland and Baltimore. Hot, muggy conditions at Camden Yards today. 87 degrees at first pitch. 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out the center field. 2 susceptible pitchers on the mound versus 2 really good lineups here. We're going to get some runs today, people. Over 9. 9 gets you the tie. 10 gets you the victory. That should happen tonight in Baltimore. It's where I'm going.
I like the look, DRS. The Orioles need to snap a 5-game skid. Cleveland has won 7 games in a row. The Guardians now, the best record in all of MLB, 51-26, a 6.62 win percentage. Yeah, sure, New York, being the Yankees, and Philadelphia have more overall wins with 52, but more losses than the Guardians. Cleveland, the best team in baseball at this moment. I go to the NBA draft. The 2024 NBA draft tonight in round number 1. I think it is worth a sprinkle on a top 10 selection. That's Zach Edey at plus 250. But the best bet, the way I would play Edey, under his draft position prop, 14.5 is now the number. Updated from yesterday at 15 and a hook. And the juice starting to change a little bit. The over, heavy juice. The under, plus money. Under 14.5 would be in the first 14 selections. That's a lottery pick. Zach Edey will be a lottery selection, the first back-to-back National Player of the Year in college basketball since Ralph Sampson in the early 1980s will go in the lottery. I know you just said who, but I know that you know Zach Edey of all the draft prospects that we have for tonight's draft.
That's good by you. I didn't say that, but that's probably something I would say as soon as you said Zach Edey. Who is that or who he played for? So good on you for picking it up. I said, like I was excited.
Just came across a little bit. I've heard you
I
have
like
a sore
that better,
throat
though.
all week long.
I like that better the other way, though.
Rest up, though, because I got to see you in person tomorrow in studio.
Solo mission,
live
Ben
on the early
Stevens
line.
tomorrow morning.
We're going to have a good
hours.
time. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern.